Yo, good morning, Adam. How are we feeling? It feels like the gang is back today. Before we, dude, funny thing is, last night as I was setting up the show, I was like, man, it feels like forever since we used to co-host the show with Leonidas. Remember the historical show? And then I realized that was only 6 months ago.
Feels like 6 years ago, dude. Well, eventually we're gonna have to bring back the historical NFT show just to like re-educate the next wave of DJs coming into the space. So that'll have to happen eventually, and I'm sure Leo's ready for it.
Yeah, dude. When I was inviting Leo on stage, I didn't realize that he had changed his PFP. I got lost.
Oh, him, Dogfather. We got all the ninjas on.
Everyone's on the ninja squad. What's good, Leo?
Yo, it's awesome being here, guys. I miss our Twitter spaces. Like we hosted those for a good couple of years. I feel like it was pretty much ever since Twitter Spaces came out. I remember being on Spaces with you guys. So sure. Yeah, I'm super honored that y'all had me back here.
Yeah, I've been pretty outspoken of talking about Ord.io as one of the kind of pillars of the Ordinals community. It's really cool what you guys have seen, so I'm excited to really dive into it. But I do want to say GM to Zach, who's also one of the co-founders of Ord.io. How you feeling, bro?
Thanks, doing well.
Cool. Your mic was a little light. Might need to be right next to it. or change.
Okay, that was the most muted sound I've ever heard. You sound pretty funny right now, Zach. Keep talking.
Leo, you haven't upgraded your team's spaces equipment over there, bro? Come on, man.
Yeah, Adam, like I said, dude, I should have upgraded my own setup a long time ago. Like, I've spent probably way too much of my life on a Twitter space to not have one of these like rigs that you guys have. Jake, are you on the good stuff or?
Yeah, we use the Rodecaster Pro. We're also live streaming this as well. We need to get you on that so you're not just talking into your iPhone, walking around your room aimlessly for 7 hours. Chris, GM. If you guys don't know, Chris is one of the newest members of Emblem Vault. How are you feeling this morning, bro?
Yo, GM, happy to be here. Feels like a reunion for you guys, so I'm stoked to just kind of hop in and see where we go. But a ton of action all across all ecosystems. It's always crazy how it just flips overnight, right? Like gloom and doom over the timeline. Everyone's infighting. Next minute, just wave, and we're so back, right, boys? So let's get into it.
Yeah, before we get started, I got to highlight Dogfather did a really nice thread this morning. I'm going to pin it up top. Everybody go give that some love, talking about the halving and stuff, and really good job there, Dogfather.
Yeah, also make sure you retweet the space that is pinned to the top so everyone could hear about the story of Ord.io. But also, who really knew that all you needed was a Binance listing and then the market's just back? It's always we'll get everything pumping. Leo, let's start just like we did with our old shows, dude. Give us a little bit of a context of the foundation of Ord.io. I believe you guys had started this maybe February or March, like pretty early into the formation of what we now call Bitcoin Ordinals. Why Ord.io? Why the Explorer? And why the like social kind of gamification addition to it?
Yeah, so I think the story pretty much starts back in Adam's Discord like a year and a half ago. This guy Casey comes in, just starts talking all this crazy stuff about, stats are the oldest NFTs. I think I found the oldest NFTs. And it turns out he was onto something like pretty clever. And I think most people at the time, most people realized like this guy's extremely intelligent. He's working on something really cool. I don't think we really had any idea how much of an impact this guy was going to have on the crypto space, because more or less he's brought this huge wave of like Web3 and innovation, and just created this entirely different set of people on Bitcoin than the existing kind of laser eye group of people. It's kind of like Counterparty, but just like a kind of new version of Counterparty or something of this nature. And yeah, just getting to be part of that and watch this protocol evolve, it was really hard not to just get sucked in more and more. So I think it was, maybe like, we launched in March, but in February, I think I pinged Zach and I was like, dude, like, this is crazy. Like, people are inscribing like thousands and thousands of files into the Bitcoin blockchain. You know, I had already had like an interest around this, talking to people like Chain Left and, working with Jake and you, Adam, and it's just it was all very obvious. Like we already held Bitcoin like assets. We already loved on-chain stuff and nerded out on this. So I was like, yeah, something really interesting is happening here. And I was like, Zach, let's build a site to basically browse. It's like a browser for this new version of Bitcoin, right? So most Bitcoin explorers, they're focused on the transactions of sending Bitcoin back and forth, and that's great. And it's obviously a huge, very large use case for Bitcoin. But now that there's this like very clear second use case of actually inscribing content into the Bitcoin blockchain, and now here we are with 40 million files have been inscribed, close to $100 million have been spent on fees to inscribe those files. It's very obvious that this is a very large second use case for Bitcoin. And Ord.io was Zach and me saying, hey, like something really interesting is happening here. We don't fully understand it. We know people are inscribing monkey pictures and wizards, and they're also inscribing like important PDF documents and all this. Like, it's unbelievable. The amount of stuff that's been inscribed into Bitcoin will be, Adam, we need a new timeline or something. Like, it's we're gonna need a really big timeline for this one. But more or less, we were like, okay, let's build and explore to view these inscriptions. And this very core idea that started it was, the existing Explorer ordinals.com was great, but all you could do was sort by the newest inscriptions. So you'd go to ordinals.com, you'd see these inscriptions, and as soon as the new block came, all the other ones were buried, 20 pages behind. And I knew there was all this incredibly like interesting stuff. Like I'm the nerd sifting through all of these, pages, finding cool stuff, tweeting about it. But most people don't have the time to do that. So Zach and I were like, what if we, allow people to connect a Ordinals wallet and then start upvoting inscriptions. And then we have a kind of Reddit style homepage where inscriptions that get more upvotes will trend on our homepage and get surfaced to the top. And that was really the genesis for Ord.io. We've since, added some pretty advanced like filtering, sorting, searching, and just a bunch of like fun social features like that. And yeah, it's been really cool to see, it kind of take off and people really like enjoy using it and really validating these ideas we had. And, that put us on this path to, eventually kind of create this idea of attributes. Again, very influenced by the time I spent with y'all and Casey on a space a little over a year ago. And yeah, it's been unbelievable being part of such a fast growing ecosystem. And I think, Zach can probably, share his kind of version as well. But it's just, I don't know, being somewhere that goes from nothing to, these coins that are on the front page of CoinMarketCap in a few months like this is just, it's very, it's wild. I barely can keep up myself, and it's an honor to be building here.
What do you think about the, I haven't talked to you about it since I think we talked about, months and months ago, about the kind of, I'd love to know what you learned as far as like the upvoting. I know you took away, I think you might've had downvoting for like a day, and then it like, you realized that wasn't a good idea. Have there been any learnings from that? Just from like the social aspect of Ordinals and what you've learned socially on your site, how people interact?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So like you mentioned, we had a downvote button, and basically like Ord.io became this like PvP collection versus collection. Like, it's already a huge problem in Web3 that collections are flooding each other. Yeah. But if you have like an enemy collection and you can go to this website and like downvote it, people aren't sharing links like, hey, upvote my inscription. They're sharing links, hey, go downvote our enemy's inscription. It was just, I think it lasted like 24 hours, and I was like talking to Zach. It was fairly obvious we needed to kill the downvote. and it's just been much healthier since then. So that was a very early learning. But yeah, in general, I would say I think people like the fact that, you know, you don't have to pay money to get featured on the homepage. You don't have to like know somebody to get curated. It's this kind of organic crowdsourcing where we've democratized the discoverability. So yeah, anybody can share a link to their inscription on Twitter. If people think it's cool, they'll go upvote it. It's really as simple as that. And, you know, again, it's not perfect. Okay. So I think we'll be working on our kind of version 2 of that algorithm over the coming months. But in general, it's been a huge success, right? Like we've gotten to feature all of these incredible, just incredible projects. Like when OMB is inscribing on, you know, Block 9 sats, like just instantly people are picking that up. It's organically kind of surfacing to the top. And that's what we wanted to see, right? Like we don't want to be the manual curators. You know, I want something cool to happen and I wake up in the morning and see that it's trending. And when something really cool happens, like that is what occurs. And I'd say that's a pretty big success.
Do you think it's going to be, can it, I mean, I'm just thinking of kind of all social. Can it ever be anything beyond the kind of what's happening today? You know what I'm saying? It's like almost all social is, even on, we're here on X, right? Something after 24 hours or 48 hours certainly is like, it's gone. Like, it's almost like it's not erased from memory. Like you can still find it, but everything is so like what's happening in this moment today. Do you guys ever think about like, is there a way to kind of, I don't know, maybe do like what happened on this day a year ago? I mean, I think that's almost like something that has to happen, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like how do you,
Adam, I think you're thinking about like a news feed model almost.
yeah,
like
it's almost like
yeah.
it's almost like in the social world we live in right now, if something, you basically have a 24-hour window and then you're to the dustbin of history, almost. And I just wanted to know how you view that in the court in ordinal space, how you view that kind of short lifespan.
Yeah, like that's definitely something that we were thinking about, like when we were designing like how we wanted our trending feed to like be weighted. So like for example, something like Twitter or Reddit or Hacker News, it's going to be very rare that like a lot of those are weighted based on the like recency of the post. So like you'll never see a random tweet like start trending without like a bunch of people retweeting it and essentially just like forcing it to get reposted. And this we want it so an inscription that was inscribed a few months ago could still trend if, like, I don't know, maybe it was the person that inscribed it did something clever, or it just kind of it's getting appreciated now. So like our feed we're basing it on the recency of the likes and upvotes rather than the inscription itself. So in that sense, it's kind of democratized. Regardless of when the inscription was created, it would have just as good of a chance of getting featured than something. Yeah, I mean, obviously there will still be issues with. In general, that would be cool to kind of take a step back in time and see what was trending this day a few years ago.
Yeah, I think like a newsfeed model, kind of like what you see on Twitter, where you have your For You page and then your For Recents, where you could kind of populate and show some of those that had been inscribed over the last few days based off of some sort of weighted algorithm would be kind of a cool option. I do want to dive in a little bit into some of the game theory that's kind of tied into Ord.io. This is kind of what I find, you know, most appealing when I look at it. There's like multiple games that are kind of being played at the same time. One of them being kind of this attention game to where you inscribe a collection and then the community goes in and upvotes it, then it gets populated to the top. And so then the whole entire ordinal, you know, community sees it on Ord.io. And then the Ord.io account and Leo's account will go and then kind of post what's trending, and then it kind of reaches this broader audience beyond the ordinals community. I guess I'll propose this to like Leo. Do you take these type of like game theoretics and social incentives in consideration as operating Ord.io, and how do you plan to either, you know, mitigate some of it or even extrapolate it to a kind of a larger audience?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. Like you're building a product, and you know, everybody who's building a product wants like more people to use it, more people to find their products and find value in that, right? And you know, the traditional way to gain exposure for your products was, you know, was like paying for an ad. Like you would pay for an ad on the radio, and then you'd pay for an ad on TV, and then, you know, you'd pay for ads on Google, right? And I guess you can pay for ads on X for crypto ads now as well on X. But that was the traditional model for like getting users and acquiring users for your business. And yeah, we were like, I think we haven't spent any money on advertising. Like, we haven't spent a penny on advertising, and we have very much been a proponent of like, let's build a great product and then have people share it through their word of mouth just because they love it. And specifically, you want to get kind of clever where, you got to think about what are the feedback loops when you're building your product to get people to actually share that, like to help encourage people to share it. So there's just very, very little things that we do. I'm not going to act like this is some kind of like genius stuff. Like, this is fairly obvious, but I think it's important because we do really watch these feedback loops. So for example, when you go to an inscription on or.io, there's a little share button and it'll encourage you to like share on Twitter. But also we tried like very specifically, like from even before we created the site, we wanted a really short, sleek domain that would look really pretty when you shared it in a tweet. And that was something we achieved with or.io. And all the other explorers and marketplaces at the time were using these kind of ugly inscription IDs in the link. And I was like, we are not doing that, Zach. Like, we're going to go these short, sweet, at the time, they would just be 6 characters, these numbers of your inscription number. And just little things like this of having this, pretty URL and having these short numbers, people just instantly started sharing links from our site just because it was more kind of aesthetically pleasing. And then we kind of doubled down on that and we're like, okay, what else can we do to help encourage this feedback loop? And, Zach created these like really pretty kind of previews, like link previews, where you'll actually see the inscription on Twitter when you share the link in this link preview. And then, you click that and you'll go to this inscription and people will actually upvote your inscription. So now there's a social feedback loop where it's like, you could share an inscription from other sites, but if you share from our site, you get this bonus of, people will upvote your inscription and you'll have a chance to show on our homepage, right? These are all just very little things, like no specific one of these things is like super like critical, but together they do kind of nudge people to share links from or.io. And yeah, like I would just encourage other builders, like pay really close attention to, feedback loops like this, especially around, spreading and trying to encourage your product to spread through word of mouth. And yeah, I love just seeing, I'm browsing Twitter and I see these or.io links everywhere. And I love seeing that. And that's kind of one example of one feedback loop. There's, obviously all of these mints happening where they'll share inscriptions, and I've seen all sorts of scavenger hunts, on-chain scavenger hunts through or.io to launch a project. People will inscribe something and say, when we get to the homepage of or.io, we'll launch the project, like all of these fun things. But yeah, at the core, it's, a pretty link and some, upvoting, right? Like people who doesn't want more upvotes? Like even if you didn't show on the homepage, like we're all kind of like, we want more. Like I want more likes on a tweet. Like everybody wants more of kind of engagement. People want to feel, like people saw and viewed and kind of appreciated what they inscribed. And when you pay, $30 to inscribe something, it's very different than just kind of uploading something to IPFS. Like this is something that you put onto the Bitcoin blockchain forever. That's going to be there for the rest of your life. And, people, when you go through that process, you want other people to appreciate what you did because you probably put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, I agree as well. But then this leads to the kind of next idea, as you and Zach have been building this now for, 9 months or so, straight out of pocket, there's no revenue model, but you see revenue opportunities, whether it is this kind of like new version of the advertisement model or, some sort of token incentives. You could also see this as very similar to Reddit, and this is what Reddit tried to do with the point system, which has now been sunsetted, and kind of their avatars. Are you and Zach as a team taking this into consideration in terms of turning this into some sort of business model, maybe even raising capital, although that's just like another avenue that's not set in stone, and to really build this to become something more than just an explorer? Or is the intent to just be this kind of free, this like free explorer that has kind of some sort of social incentives, but non-monetized in any manner?
So right now we're just very focused on becoming this great explorer experience where when people want to go explore ordinals and inscriptions, and then also rare and exotic stats, like we want them to come to or.io to do that. So that is like our main focus. I do always, of course, it's important. Eventually, you have to make money as a business. You can't just offer a free product forever. Like that's not sustainable. But I've also never been like a huge fan of needing to kind of monetize everything up front. We're fine continuing to operate the way we are right now. And I think I was very pleasantly surprised by, for example, how successful, just indexing attributes was. And as an entrepreneur, I think you have to be somewhat humbled and open-minded that you don't know exactly what you're building. And the product needs to evolve based on the space evolving and the needs of your users evolving. So we're still pretty open-minded in this regard. There's definitely business models we could experiment with. There's, we have people asking us, can I buy and sell inscriptions there? There's obviously multiple models around that. Blur has a token. You've got sites, most exchanges just take a, taker or maker fee. You've got, this kind of API layer that we've built, this backend infrastructure that could potentially be leveraged, and you could have a kind of infrastructure product that would just be something like builders would pay a subscription to have access to. And there's everything in between. Like we're in Web3, so you can pretty much monetize in a gazillion ways, right? Like this is just a giant sandbox for experimenting with monetization. That's sort of what crypto is. So yeah, I mean, we could do subscriptions and have cool features like that are token gated. You could we could release a collection. These are all things we could do, but we're not really rushing to make money. Like we're focused on building the best product that we can. And I think if we do that, we'll ultimately find success.
So kind of one of the pinnacles, or I'd say staples of or.io, outside of just being this fun tool to upvote and showcase kind of new inscriptions, is attributes. And sorry, I was getting a call there. Was attributes, and this also comes from that early conversation we had with Casey. What was it, like September of last year, talking about all these ways to label, the sat, whether it's year or something that was part of the Rodimer Rarity Index, or we even theorized even back on that conversation with Casey of people building rarity systems outside of what Casey had introduced, which is now it's kind of happened. It's kind of a lot of power for or.io and you get yourselves to hold, because we're aware that once this attribute is added, there tends to be controversy on either side, whether people just don't agree with it, whether they think or.io is kind of overextending their authority. How do you go about that process of first aligning attributes in a way that the community feels is favorable? Because it's essentially a value creation metric, because now once you put that out there, because of the notoriety between yourself, Zach, and or.io, people will view that as credibility. It's almost along the same lines of Casey creating Runestone, even though he has no experience kind of in the fungible token space. Just take us through that kind of thought process and how it looks through your eyes of adding attributes when the community is generally indifferent about no matter what type of edition you add.
Yeah, attributes was an interesting one where like we literally Casey predicted all this stuff to a T, right? Like Casey predicted that people would be draining the hot wallets from all these exchanges, hunting for sats. He predicted that like, way before that even remotely started to happen. That's really only picked up over the last 2 or 3 months here.
Oh, you predicted it. I think you were like, was it, you shared a tweet where you had sent a DM to somebody? It might have even been Zach. I don't know. And you were like, hey man, we need to start mining for these now. I forget when you sent that tweet out or when that, but it was like before, the official launch.
Yeah. Casey's like, not only is he technically savvy, but he's a pretty good marketer and explainer. And he kind of converted me to, he convinced me that this was the case. So this is why I was already pretty much, to me, the Ordinals protocol was rare stats more so than the inscriptions, even when inscriptions were the bigger thing. And I still, like, believe it or not, kind of hold that to be my belief. I think, inscriptions are absolutely incredible. I believe rare and exotic stats will probably be like a larger thing than inscriptions, though. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, like I was like, okay, everybody's focused on the inscriptions. This whole rare and exotic stats thing that Casey's talking about in the handbook, this is like really interesting. What if we index a way for people to view if their inscription is on one of these like rare, exotic, interesting stats? So, maybe it's stupid, maybe nobody cares, but if your inscription is on a stat from block 9, is that something you would care about? Is that something you would want to know? And we genuinely it wasn't completely obvious that people would care. Nobody did this at the time. But we, indexed these several different categories. Zach and I went and did some research, and we were like, okay, which blocks did Satoshi mine that he spent the reward for? And there's like these 19 blocks, and had to go do the research and get these stat ranges, and then index it and index all these inscriptions. And at the time, like most of these attributes hadn't actually been used. Like people hadn't inscribed on them yet. So we got to go through and kind of watch over the next couple of months as stat hunters would find, the first block 9 stats, or find, a palindrome stat and inscribe on that for the first time. And it was a really special thing to kind of watch that all play out. I would say during the kind of peak hype of like June of this year, we started to get a lot of FUD from people who thought that we just made completely like they viewed it as like Leonidas made up this narrative around rare and exotic stats, and this is completely made up and it's stupid and blah blah blah. And the reality is, like, to a degree, yes, like I did help kind of codify these categories and create like this kind of basic scaffolding of a standard of like, these are pizza stats, they get a pizza icon, and here's the stat ranges for the pizza stats. Like, so in that way I did. But I'm a collector just like you guys. So it was very obvious to me, like, what stats do people want to collect? Probably the oldest ones. Like, that would make sense. Probably stats from interesting, transactions. Probably beautiful stats like palindromes. So I think ended up having a really good hit rate. Like all 10 attributes that we currently support are all very, very popular. Like there was none in there where I was like, hey, we should support this and nobody cares. Like all of them are quite popular attributes. But after that little experience, we were like, okay, let's take this wait and see approach. If we just start adding kind of more things and like literally front running the market, like before people are even inscribing on them, we are adding them to our Explorer. It's going to actually it's going to be like dictating market behavior, and it's not going to allow an organic discovery process to happen. And that was maybe a little bit of helpful feedback. So like I said, we took this wait and see approach and, let others, come along and, create all of these like, really interesting attribute ideas. And, some of them got traction, some of them haven't. And we're actually going to be very soon here, doing, we're calling it the week of attributes, where we've been watching, and we're going to be adding some new attributes. But yeah, we've specifically taken this approach kind of more similar to Coinbase or Artbox, where we're very carefully curating, maybe, I don't want to say protecting users, but just being very thoughtful about what we support so that people aren't, buying. Like, there are definitely attributes where I look at that and I'm like, that's the dumbest idea ever. And I don't mean dumb as in like it's a pizza stat, like silly. I mean dumb as in like that is somebody who put zero thought into categorizing that. It's just objectively a bad attribute, like in many ways, and it doesn't. Nobody is like, as a collector, will be interested in collecting that long term, even if like you kind of create some interest around it, because there's not a good narrative. Like it's not a clear thing. So we're obviously avoiding some attributes like that, but there's some really cool attributes people have created, and we're gonna be adding support for those in the coming weeks here.
We're gonna call those stupid tributes. Those are in the future, like the ones we just don't like. But you can see how it could get. Well, it's basically infinite, right? And so, are you guys gonna do something as far as like they've got to be upvoted a certain amount of times or something like that in order to make it into your, curated collection of attributes? Is that the idea, or are you just gonna go by kind of the vibe you get?
Kind of. We're really just watching. Like, we're watching on Twitter. What are people talking about? We're looking at sat hunters. Like, what are the sat hunters? They have to actually pay a fee every time they extract sats. So if people are putting their money where their mouth is and extracting those sats, where there's collectors buying those sats over the counter, or other tools are supporting those sats and collections are trying to inscribe on those sats and people care about it, this is all great signal that we should support some new attributes, right? Like that's a good attribute that has some organic demand by collectors, rather than just like just completely kind of made up
made up narrative. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly so many interesting things around Bitcoin and transactions around Bitcoin. I mean, you can imagine all sorts of attributes around heists or wallet drains or God knows what. So it's that's something I think we'll probably be dealing with for the rest of our lifetimes, as long as people are kind of collecting these will pop up. It should be really interesting to see how it evolves over the next few years.
Leo, let's talk a little bit about the future of ordinals, or kind of where everything is going. It's funny, over the last few months, during the last, I guess you'd say, 3 months of kind of this ordinal correction, there was a heavy attack on BRC20. Right, you have the kind of creator coming out really resistant towards it. You have the community coming in and supporting it, and obviously we see now the community obviously is really in the driver's seat of this. But looking past BRC20, we keep seeing this meme on Twitter, people saying that ordinals has surpassed ETH NFT volume, when in reality it's mostly just BRC20, which is kind of moving to become a fungible token. For a while we really didn't know what it was. I still think it's kind of this fourth type, call it kind of composable semi-fungible tokens. Where is ordinals going from an inscription standpoint outside of fungible tokens? Will it be something beyond just trading these fungible like tokens on Bitcoin and speculating on the value?
So I would think of ordinals as this idea of there's these different digital objects, digital assets that people want to hold, that live on a blockchain, and people can store value on them and trade with them and use them, right? And all of these other blockchains like Ethereum and Solana and Tezos, etc., have really pioneered all of these. I don't want to say pioneered, because actually a lot of this stuff obviously has a history on Bitcoin, but they've really taken up the mantle and allowed all of that experimentation to happen, and that activity is pretty predominantly happen on these other chains. And what ordinals is this idea of Casey saying, hey, Bitcoin can actually do these things too. We're going to take that idea of an NFT, of a meme coin. We're going to bring it to Bitcoin. We're going to think from first principles, from the ground up, redesign a more sound primitive that applies the properties and values of Bitcoin to that digital thing, that digital asset. And when you did that to NFTs, you end up with these digital artifacts, these on-chain, immutable, very just clean inscriptions. And then you could obviously do that to more assets, right? NFTs are just one aspect of Web3. So we have seen, obviously within NFTs, there are the bitmap metaverse band. There are domain names like, dot sats, but then also like meme coins and fungible tokens are the largest asset class in Web3, really, right? Like these are, $150 billion market cap on, Ethereum for the ERC20 token. And then NFTs are much smaller than that at $10 billion market cap. So when you look through that lens, it's fairly obvious that, if Domo showed anything, it was that there's insane pent up demand for fungible tokens and meme coins on Bitcoin. Just the fact that you can put out a tweet and then a month later you're getting listed on OKX, and Like literally he put out a tweet and it was just an idea like that anybody could follow. There was zero indexer. And a month later, this thing is $500 million market cap and it's listed on all these like very legit exchanges. It shows that the demand is there. And I sort of think of rare and exotic sats as like Bitcoin's native meme coins. Like that's one framework for a way to look at this. And I just personally love Casey's vision for rare and exotic sats. There's of course all of these kind of more traditional fungible token standards such as BRC20, and then Casey's kind of pet project recently is Runes, and then everything. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's so many other standards now, and I love seeing all the experimentation. But those are the two kind of main ones that people are focused on. And yeah, I think it's probably a very large opportunity on Bitcoin, and just the simplicity of being able to click a button and buy a meme coin makes it a little bit less of a barrier to entry than the NFT market, where you're not going to do very well in the NFT market if you don't understand and spend a lot of time researching and kind of basically at least like scrolling through Twitter for an hour a day. You're going to be completely out of the loop. With meme coins, I think in general, people just get a message from their friend like, hey, get in this now. It's a low market cap. Then they go buy it. And it's very easy to do. So there's just way more people that feel comfortable participating in that versus understanding all of these social hierarchies and games being played with PFPs, which is not that intuitive. And you would need to spend, I would argue, like, 500 hours in the NFT space before you bought a PFP to even remotely have any idea of how this market operates. Whereas that's not the case with meme coins. Like what you see is what you get. Like everybody knows it's kind of a gambling game with the meme coins. And yeah, Casey's building a shitcoin casino on Bitcoin is what he calls it. Like it's probably going to be a very big thing that people are going to want to do fungible tokens on Bitcoin. And I'm here for it. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, and I think Casey's really inspired a lot of builders on Bitcoin, even in kind of this roundabout way to even build on Bitcoin, even if ordinals isn't included. And we're starting to see, protocols like atomicals start to surface, and I'm starting to see conversations around, right? I think Track has Tap, and they also have Pipeline, and there's going to be a handful of other ones. Is this would Ord.io consider supporting some of these Bitcoin native protocols that are outside of ordinals, even though it is Ord.io, but it is tangentially related because it is helping proliferate the adoption of Bitcoin and also the speculation of Bitcoin. So curious your thoughts on other protocols on Bitcoin.
Yeah, so the answer is long term, we're open-minded to supporting other protocols. We have historically, when I say historically, we've only been around a few months, but we've been very conservative about what we support. So even all of these meta protocols for inscriptions, we don't really do a whole lot of indexing. Like, I think to us, it's very important that we stay pretty true to Casey's handbook. I think Casey put a massive amount of thought into creating a culture and creating these new primitives. And it's great that there's experimentation with all of these other, ways of doing things. But Casey created a very sound way to do NFTs and created a really beautiful, ordinal theory is this very beautiful thing that he created. And the fact that we can collect these rare and exotic Satoshis is just it's really special. And there's, plenty of work and features that we can build there for a very long time, I think. And those are two very large opportunities and asset classes that we want to be stewards of. And I think that means not biting off more than we can chew, right? Like there's other people that are going to do a great job, building Runes marketplaces and BRC20 exchanges, right? We're really focused on inscriptions, rare stats. That's what we do. And we think, those are very sound foundations for people to be building on and collecting with. And yeah, we want to support those two assets because we're just mega bullish on both of those. And there's just lots of other experimentation on the fringes that it would be cool to dip our toes into, but we're just not as high confidence. Like if you ask me, what is my probability that inscriptions and rare and exotic stats are much bigger in like 2 or 3 years than they are today, I would delusionally tell you, 100% chance. and I don't have that conviction for a lot of these other things. It's just a reality. Like I can see things coming and going. I can see better versions of things coming out, but I'm again, I'm a low inscription number, file size, rare exotic sat maxi, right? Like this is what I really, really love and personally just very confident in, and that's what we want to build products for.
Yeah, when I explore or.io, I think I commented on one of your posts when you added the file size metric. I had responded and said, this adds kind of another value layer for collectors who just purchase things based off of whatever their own preference is. So I think coming from the historical NFT community, really see some of those signs and those attributes show on or.io. I do have one final question, and then I'll open it up for hands. Maybe this is a little bit of a controversial take or whatever, but Leo, you do post semi often about this idea that Ethereum NFTs are what do you call them? AWS type NFTs, right? Where it's all stored.
The term is AWS PFPs is kind of changed.
AWS PFPs,
Funny.
but it's not. And then you talk about how ordinals are these completely on-chain equivalent of NFTs, but it's not completely true, right? It's when you're generally looking at Ethereum NFTs, the token is on chain, right? So the ownership layer is on chain, but the data is off chain because it's generally stored in IPF or Arweave. There are on-chain ETH NFTs that do exist. When you come to ordinals, right, the data is on chain, but the ownership layer is off chain. Why is ordinals a more superior product, even though the ownership layer does have this trade-off when you compare it to ETH NFTs?
Yeah, it's a great question. Fundamentally, Bitcoin and Ethereum are both taking stabs at an NFT primitive, and they're just making different trade-offs, right? Like there's no perfect world where you make one trade. Like when you make a trade-off, like you're gaining something and losing something else. Like this is the way the world works, right? And I think with every meme, and I really hope people don't take my like kind of meme type shit posting like too seriously. Like it's meant kind of to be a little bit fun. Obviously, there's a grain of truth in every meme. So if you ever see me tweet out AWS PFPs, it's me just kind of like sitting here on Twitter and seeing somebody who's done 5 minutes of research into the ordinal space and Bitcoin, and they have a PFP that's literally stored in a warehouse in Cleveland, Ohio, and they are they're like claiming that there's no value in ordinals. Like I don't know why you would go there. They're dead. Ordinals are dead. This kind of stuff, and it's just a little silly to me. It's like the file where the file is actually stored is one of the trade-offs that we made, and you have to pay a lot more money to inscribe a file onto Bitcoin because we made that trade-off. And there's obviously pros that come with that, which is that file is going to sit on the Bitcoin blockchain forever. So I kind of like to just poke fun at that a little bit. Again, obviously, I think people know I hold a lot of Ethereum NFTs. I like Ethereum people. Like Ethereum culture is actually really cool. They're just a great place for builders. I think Vitalik really nailed it with that, and I want Bitcoin to start to have more of a culture of that. But yeah, in general, it's like, yeah, the kind of weak points in ordinals that if I was trying to poke holes and steel man the opposing argument would be that it's this consensus mechanism where we've got like 10,000 people running these modified Bitcoin nodes that subscribe to ordinal theory, and that's a made up thing. Casey calls it the collective delusion, right? Like he uses first in, first out indexing to track Satoshis as they move around the Bitcoin network. And like, to me, this entire space is just a giant social consensus. And if you get enough people to believe something, like there's 21 million Bitcoin, then it's almost like that becomes true, right? Like I think the odds of Bitcoin ever changing to have a different supply than 21 million is very, very low, like about as low as you can get. And I think as ordinals grows, you're placing a bet that more people will subscribe to ordinal theory and more people will care about this. And that's exactly what we're seeing, right? We're seeing, half of the hash rate on Bitcoin, these miners are setting aside their uncommon sats that they mine, the first sat from the block. These are the kind of signs of, something going from crazy idea that Casey had in Adam's Discord to, wow, this is something that a lot of people are buying into, and probably, as this narrative grows, and I think it's just been up and to the right, ordinal theory becomes more and more real. And I think if I was going to poke holes in it, it would definitely be that we're using this kind of meta protocol indexing approach. And, it would be better if that layer was actually, being run by every Bitcoin node and was in, the Bitcoin protocol itself. And there's actually a bit to do that, but we're not there yet. So, and we probably won't be for a long time. So it's a great critique.
Yeah, I think in the future, it's possible that miners are going to want a signal to get that ownership layer hard coded into Bitcoin. It'll be a lot harder because you need 80 or 90% consensus. But in the future, as Bitcoin maximalism becomes something of the past and you have more of this cultural layer on top, I think that's something that'll be kind of front and center in the conversation, probably in a few halvings from now. What's up, Dogfather?
Yeah, hey, thanks guys for having me. I'm driving. Do you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, cool, thanks. First, Leo, huge props for a new PFP. I haven't told you in person. So it looks so modern and fresh and very suitable for an ordfluencer to have an actually ordinal as the PFP. So, and I think the ninjas made a great job in customizing it. So I'm not aware of any kind of like PFP series where you can actually tell what you need and pick something. I mean, even a CryptoPunk, you would not find someone throwing a dice and something like this. So it's a block or whatever that is. It's pretty cool. And Adam, thanks for pinning my recent post. So I'm trying to do a bit more like in depth this kind of data analytics. So I have so many questions to Leo and Zach. So, but the first and most important one is what you guys are thinking about the Friends protocol and whether that's something to be integrated at one point in time in Odd.io. We have something like more suited to a person than just the wallet. So that's my key question. So that would be really lovely to have something like a soulbound token that's kind of linked to an Odd.io profile. So thanks.
Yeah, the social graph is definitely something Zach and I talk about a bit. I'm actually curious, like Zach, maybe do you want to share? There's many ways you can tackle the social graph thing. You could obviously do centralized. You could do fully on chain, like the Friends protocol that you're doing, Dogefather. There's a lot of in betweens there. Zach, I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, over the past few weeks, actually, I've been digging more into a lot of these like decentralized social products and seeing the different ways that they do things. And like I think in the space, it seems like Farcaster, Noster are the two big ones, and then there are a bunch of others. And yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, I don't necessarily think everything needs to be on chain for social stuff, but I think that it's super cool when you could put stuff on chain. So I don't know. I don't think there's clearly not any like runaway winner yet. And I think that this is something where like there definitely will be, like, I don't know, 10 years down the line. Like, I think a lot of what Elon's done at Twitter is great, but there's room to improve and there's no reason that it shouldn't be decentralized. So I'm just kind of gonna sit on the sidelines for now and just kind of watch who wins, and then we'll see how we can best implement it based on what people are looking for.
Yeah, so thanks. So I think we need to do a better job and be bigger and better, and then come again and ask the same question in half a year or a year.
Yeah, I remember when we dabbled around with the social graph. I think it was called Bcard on Polygon. Or yeah, that was a fun time. That also feels like forever ago. Zach, I'm curious. I've never actually heard like your kind of origin story of how you ended up hooking up with Leo. But then also outside of that, I'm curious of like, how do you two as a partnership or business partnership balance each other when it comes to strengths and weaknesses? What generally are the tasks that you take on from Ord.io that maybe you have a strength on over Leonidas and vice versa?
Yeah, sure. So just to give a little bit of a background, so I had first met Leo through the Crypto Skulls, actually. It was actually, that's how I met Adam too. I remember it was, I don't know, probably, I mean, it seems like so long ago, but not that
875 years ago, bro.
a year and a half ago, maybe. It was, I made this little like football skulls website where you could choose a football team and it would put like a little pixelated skull on top of your whatever crypto skull you had, and then you could like download the image.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was how I kind of first, and then I just built a bunch of other like little side stuff for crypto skulls. Like I had a skull tracker website that was pretty cool, with like linked QR codes with this map. Anyway, so yeah, then I had graduated college and I kind of stepped away from crypto a bit. It was like the bear market had been picking up. My job was like a kind of normal Web2 job, so I just didn't have as much time for it. And then it was around February-ish that Leo reached out to me, and I had seen stuff on Twitter about ordinals, but I hadn't looked too deeply into it. I hadn't like been minting anything or anything. And then yeah, we started kind of building exactly as Leo described, and then it was just like, okay, here we go. This is catching on, and like, I mean, I've always done little side projects, and this was just like far and away was just such a cool feeling seeing something that people like actually enjoyed using and like had a future. And yeah, that's kind of how it started.
And what type of roles do you fill at Word.io? Are you the developer? Are you the designer? Do you both kind of do the same thing? I know Leo's a developer. I also know he likes to like write really long essays that no one wants to read. And says, I'm sorry for you.
Leo's chief marketing officer, I believe.
I'm curious, what you do over at Word.io?
Yeah, so in terms of how we kind of structure our team, it's really like we have a Trello board with all the things we want to do. Leo adds an item to the Trello board. I write the code, and then we go to the next item.
Leo tells me what he wants, and I do it. That's the way it goes.
It's like,
yeah, I mean, jokes aside, Zach is humble, but dude, he's a beast coder. Like he definitely, he's impressed me with a lot of the ways he's engineered and solved some of these problems that we've run into. And like, I could pretty confidently say he's a better coder than me. And, you know, it's the one responsible for like, writing the actual code and engineering the product. And it's actually a pretty, I don't know how many like different microservices and stuff we're using, like the actual number, but there are a lot of pieces of our infrastructure. And Zach kind of keeps it all running himself, and I don't really need to worry about it too much because he's got it all down pretty well. And yeah, it's been awesome working with someone who really, I mean, Zach's just graduated, undergraduate, and I think really architected a pretty decently complicated system that's been running pretty smoothly for a while now, and have to really give him a lot of credit for that, because like he's the one responsible for making the actual site run. And when a feature gets released, like yes, like I'm playing the product manager type role, but Zach is the one actually like implementing that in practice. And there's just a lot of work that happens there that Zach is the one doing that work.
That makes sense. And Leo, your product manager past life is spewing as you're saying. We'll go on Prism first, and then Dogfather right after.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, I think Word.io has become just this central part of ordinals, just naturally, right? Just organically, just came about as a place for everyone to kind of see what's going on in the ecosystem. And someone touched on it earlier. Do you guys have any plans for, say we have a project account or a personal account, being able to follow friends or have people follow like a project account and kind of see what they're inscribing and take on more of that social aspect?
So no, we don't have any like immediate plans to share in regards to that. Like it's definitely something we're thinking about. Like how cool would it be if Counterfeit had their address and their account all, the kind of, decentralized Bitcoin native way. And then you're able to, have people who are interested in knowing when the next counterfeit inscription happens, they, follow your account, and then it'll show up in their feed like the second you inscribe or they get a notification. This is obviously like pretty interesting, and definitely something we're definitely thinking about, but it's not it's not immediately on our roadmap.
Awesome. Thank you, Leo. Dogfather. Up to bat for number 2. You might be on mute.
Muted, man.
Or he's driving.
He's
Chris,
driving.
I see,
We lost him
Chris,
in a
I see you turned your mic off. What are you thinking throughout this entire conversation?
Yeah, man, love it. Just kind of more of a meta question of Bitcoin being, has a really likely chance of being, one of the biggest kind of markets in the entire world. How does it feel? How's it kind of changed your personal lives, Zach and Leo, of just being able to contribute in kind of such a big way at such an early stage?
I definitely think like if you're working here just in crypto in general, you have to like I definitely have this feeling like I'm participating in the start of something really interesting. Satoshi created something, very interesting, put it into the world, and we're just the early stewards of that thing. And I think a lot of the critiques of crypto are, oh, people are just gambling. There's lots of scams, yada yada. I mean, that's just that's how it is. There is a lot of that today. I think in 50 years, our entire civilization runs on these rails, and that is a civilization where the people in that society have lots of autonomy over their own lives. They have sovereignty. They're maximizing their freedom. They don't have this AI government overlord dictating everything that they have to do. And I think that's a future that I'm like personally interested in striving towards. And I think people are a little short-sighted just looking at you can focus on the meme coins and the maybe it looks like a silly JPEG to a lot of people, but like I very much strongly believe that there is just a fundamentally civilization changing technology that is just finding very early product market fit. And yeah, our whole civilization kind of moves on to onto these rails, and that's an incredibly important thing to be working on. And yeah, I think it just takes time. People expect things to happen overnight, and the reality is the internet was around for a long time before we got Instagram and before we got Google and these things. So yeah, I just genuinely the we're early answer is kind of lame, but I genuinely think we're super early, and I'm very excited to see crypto as a whole play out over the coming decades.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're early as a narrative. We are when it comes to that viewpoint. Like I know you, Jake, probably most people on this space feel the same way as you just, eloquently, described it. But most of the world doesn't see that vision. Like almost no part of the world sees that vision, right? And so that's why I think it's actually really special that we're all here at this early stage. And I think it's one of the things that gets me down about, the kind of battles we have on, crypto X now. It's like, guys, we're the first movers on this like game-changing technology, and it's all just like how we can dump our coins on everybody else. It's sad and hilarious at the same time. I'm sure the historians will look back on it and laugh quite a bit about our follies going forward. But I love that vision. I completely share it, and I know most people here share that vision.
Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I just wanted to echo again what Leo and Adam have been saying. For me though, like beyond just being able to kind of work on whatever you want, it's like really fun and encouraging. It's like before this, I was like the company I was working for is like a SaaS company, and like it was fine, but it's cool kind of building for the future that you want to see. And as I've been more involved with Bitcoin, I've just learned a ton more. I visited Bitcoin Park last week, which was awesome, and just kind of getting more deeper ingrained within the ecosystem. And yeah, I mean, there's like, I can't imagine ever going back to a Web2 job now. So hopefully we don't have to, but yeah.
Got to monetize quick, Leo. Hurry up, man.
It's funny as we sit here and have this conversation, you think about, 50 years from now, the world running on crypto rails, but it's not so obvious. And you think about like the adoption of Bitcoin. Arthur Hayes, who's the founder of BitMEX back in the day, had an interesting kind of article, I think this was earlier this year, about the convergence of AI and Bitcoin, right? AI is kind of this hot topic. And he discusses how, when there is when AI progresses, it's going to have to transact in some sort of internet native currency. And so then he speculates, what is the most probable what's the most probable, I guess, store of value or medium of exchange that's digitally native that AI is going to be able to just interact with in a frictionless way? And he speculates that it's going to be Bitcoin. Leo, maybe this isn't completely intertwined, but how do you view AI, as you're also just a tech nerd in general? Is there any intersections of AI that you see or.io expanding on, or even maybe on a more macro scale? Where do you see the intersections of Bitcoin and AI?
It's so hard to predict AI because it's like the space is completely different from even a year ago. It's kind of like crypto. I could make all the predictions in the world in 2017 or 2014. All of my predictions were just complete dog shit. Like they literally were. Like, if you asked me, like I bought Bitcoin in 2014, like predict 5 years from now in crypto, like I would have just been off the mark completely. And it's probably the case with AI. Like I think people, it's kind of cliche to say, but I think, people used to think that AI would come for the, come for like the truckers and come for the jobs of like, people like cashiers or something like this. And the reality is it came for like, creative jobs, like what was supposed to be the last thing it would come for. I'm not an expert in AI enough to fully understand exactly how it plays out, like how that intelligence can be applied to our world in practical ways that get adopted. But yeah, I use ChatGPT every day. I'm incredibly impressed by the rate of innovation in that sector. And yeah, I imagine like I think the world's going to look really, really different in like 5 years, like in really weird ways. So I would say strap in. The rate of improvement with AI is pretty unprecedented. We use a little bit of AI at Ord.io. So if you've ever seen the not safe for work tag on an image, that's an AI doing that. Zach and I aren't manually looking at every inscription. You'll also see we have little tags. So every image inscription, gets fed through this AI tagging system. And, if you search for dog and then click the tag in the search bar for dog, you'll see thousands of inscriptions where people like, put pictures of their pet dog on Bitcoin, right? Like it's pretty fun. These are both kind of, moderation and then the novelty of tags. These are pretty tiny ways we're using it. And I would actually love to see, like Zach and I have interesting ideas around how we could use, AI in the future to make the site better. And there's actually some pretty incredible, like I think interfaces in general, user interfaces are going to change a lot based on AI and just the ability to, instead of like clicking a bunch of buttons to do something, you just in human language ask for something and then you see it. I think that's probably going to get to a good enough point that, even apps like Twitter, the search bar is going to be AI, and most people are going to be using Twitter through a search bar where they're like, show me the 100 tweets that I want to see for the day that I would most be interested in, instead of like, going through a data feed, for example. I think people like really custom. AI is going to really help create custom experiences for the individual. And I think it's going to be hard to beat an interface that just gives you exactly what you want to see the way you're wanting to get it. Interfaces today, we all use the same interface. Everybody goes to Ord.io today. They're all seeing the same thing. In the future, I think you're going to go to Ord.io and everybody's going to see something different that's custom to them.
Yeah, it's like almost what Adam was speaking about a little bit earlier. One of the cool AI crypto tools I've seen recently was Dune Analytics, which everyone is familiar with for providing crypto information, is creating Dune AI, where you could basically just type in a prompt and it'll pull whatever type of analytical tool that you want. It's not released, but they teased it like a week ago. So that is kind of interesting. We did welcome Butoshi on stage, who has something to say or a question. What's good?
Hi, sorry. It's kind of like instinct to request when someone mentions AI. It's because Leo said that, like, well, we're worried about them like coming for trucker jobs. So I hung out with a girl yesterday, and she actually showed me that Ulta Beauty has AI lash bots to where you literally go up to the bot, and like it does your eyelashes in 20 minutes, and it's like fully AI, fully machine. And that was like a human ass job to replace. So that even like tripped kind of me out. So it was like, whoa, that's like an AI messing with my eyeballs. Like one freak
Wait,
accident.
so it actually like trims the eyelashes or trims your eyebrows or whatever?
It puts your eyelashes on. Like it's straight, it does straight eyelash tag. It's like in every
eyelashes,
right now that she showed me. It's like really trippy.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is interesting. All right, Dogfather, you're back on stage, bro. Round 2. Do you have a question from before?
I don't have a question, not a specific one. I just want to ask, what's going on with the devs nowadays? I mean, I can recall the devs were the introverts without the girlfriend, looking like spending too much time playing games and eating, chips and drinking Diet Coke. And nowadays they look like underwear models. I mean, what's wrong with you, Zach? I could not work with you. It's really horrible. I mean, I thought like Leo is working with the real dev, but they're working like professional football players. I don't know. The world has changed. Then the other devs are dancing. They have the hot girlfriends. I don't know. Times has changed. I mean, yeah. What's going on? I mean, can you explain that to me? What happened? What didn't I get? I mean,
bro, I like my devs either fat like Wozniak or skinny like Vitalik and like complete dorks. I don't like these newfangled GQ model devs. It's off-putting, isn't it, Dogfather? It's off-putting. I don't like it.
It's disgusting, man. It's disgusting. I mean, please, let's go back. Let's
go back. I like my devs autistic and fat.
Yeah, I like Vitalik. That's okay. I mean,
or Vitalik. Yeah, one or the other.
I mean, Vitalik has some other qualities we've seen on some pictures, but man, that's amazing. I mean, I don't know how they build these people nowadays, but it's cool. I mean, so much talent on Bitcoin right now. And maybe one thing. I mean, I'm just building like 0.1% what like Zach and Leo building on Auth.io, but I mean, building on Bitcoin. This is really like life-changing experience, and really, wow, this is amazing. It's I mean, I did a few projects on other chains, and it really does not compare to building on Bitcoin. I mean, it's the mother chain. It will be around if you do well for a long time. Wow, this is really a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it quite a lot. Certainly with Emblem Vault, we talk about it a lot, which is like, what's going to be the next big thing to happen in crypto? What's going to be the thing to move the needle next, to bring in a whole new, grouping of people, bring in the normies again. And up until ordinals, like the odds of that happening on Bitcoin were 0%, right? And ordinals completely flipped that game, where now it's a player. Like, it may happen on Solana, it may happen on Ethereum, or it could definitely happen on Bitcoin. I think that's been the that's the amazing thing about what ordinals is.
It blows my mind that literally one guy did one thing, and it changed the entire landscape of the entire crypto economy. And now we're all here because of him.
That's right.
It's fucking nuts to me.
Do you believe in the individual? Yes, individual.
I do. I absolutely do believe in individual. I believe in all of us individually as a space too, like to continue on what Casey made and just like blow this shit the fuck up. And that's why I'm bullish. Also, speaking of like the devs on ordinals, bro, every dev on ordinals is actually attractive. Like you're talking about, like that's why I'm more bullish on ordinals, bro. Like I go to an ordinals event and people actually know what the ordinal is. Like it's amazing.
It's all thanks to Udi.
It's all thanks to Udi.
Thank you, Udi. Thank you so much, Udi.
That's awesome, man. We had a couple other people up. Ordinal Maiko. I don't know if you wanted to say anything while you're up.
GM. I think there was one thing I wanted to mention from what Leonidas and everyone was saying on the stage, that the cultural aspect, I think, is one of the missing, like was missing, and is the crucial one, is the most crucial one. And previously it was like laserized maxis and so on, then stagnation time period. But right after that, it's so colorful on Bitcoin, or there are so many creative people, builders, and even how people interact with each other. It's mind blowing, and I think that Bitcoin needed it, and it happened. And now we are like stage by stage developing the space further. So that's great, and the infrastructure and exactly our topic of the spaces is also one of the points here. During past months, the infrastructure was really built. The builders didn't looking, let's say, on the initial profits ASAP, SAP, but they were more focused on sharing, building, and so on. And that's what played also a role. Thank you,
I
guys.
think that- completely right. Infrastructure is huge. But like, at the start of the Ordinal show, when Trevor says, but the big thing is the changing culture, like it's huge. I mean, obviously the infrastructure is super important and foundational, but the building, the idea that Bitcoin's open for building again, really for the first time, it wasn't open in 2016 and 17 during the counterparty. It was very much closed. It was not accepted. Certainly when colored coins were happening and stuff, not really accepted back then either, and certainly the market wasn't ready for it. So it's just really is a magical time where these things kind of all came together, and Casey brought back this idea that was floated whatever a decade earlier, repackaged it, and here we are. It's amazing.
We did bring Miko. You still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Miko.
Yo, Bo! Bo is our AI specialist for the ordinals. He will be protecting us from the Terminators soon.
I'm gonna make them. I'm gonna make it so if you hold an ordinal description, you won't get targeted. I got you guys.
Wait, has anybody actually seen anything being built yet that's interesting with an AI that actually like really interfaces with the blockchain and has control over like its own bag or its own wallet? Has anybody seen anything like that yet?
Yes, I saw. So one of the things I'm really interested in the AI is that my friend made a bunch of AI agents that transact with each other on the Lightning Network. So I think, sorry, I was like kind of waking up, but I think someone brought up about someone else bringing up AI agents interacting and using crypto as a peer-to-peer thing for like their payments. That was literally like the prime use case of that. I also saw an AI wallet. This is actually really sick for onboarding new people. I saw an app that was an AI wallet, and literally all you have to do is talk to it. So let's say you want to buy a shitcoin, you just like type or talk to it like, hey, can you buy me like 0.1 ETH worth of the shitcoin? And then it'll automatically do the transaction for you. I think it was mostly a concept, but that concept is fucking sick because imagine being a normie and you have to learn how to do shitcoins, and all you do is talk to an AI. And like it'll pop up with some confirmations like, hey, do this. And then boom, now you have a shitcoin. I think that's like amazing for mass onboarding normies.
Zach, what are your thoughts on AI?
Yeah, so in terms of like just the dynamics of like using AI in like a crypto ecosystem, data vending machines are like the coolest thing I've seen in a while for this. So essentially what it is, a lot of this is being built out on Nostr, but essentially you have, so like someone has this like beast computer that's running some AI algorithm. Say you want to have like you're posting this podcast and you want it to be like automatically transcribed. You are sending this out to a bunch of these like different AI agents. They're all coming back to you with bids saying, okay, I'll do this for no. And this is all denominated in Satoshi. So like I'll do this for 1,000 sats. I'll do this for 2,000 sats. Each of them have some reputation score. And then you essentially say, okay, I'll choose you. And then you send over the rest of the data. It sends you back the transcripts. And then like you're done. And then like there's no other human in the loop. And then you could chain these events one after the other. So you could be like, okay, first I want you to go to this AI to generate the transcript. Then I want you to go to that AI to edit and make like a cool screensaver for it. Then I want you to go to that AI and post it on all these social networks, and then like you only press one button and then it's done. So if anyone's kind of looking at that stuff, like it's so cool.
You said that's on Nostr?
Yeah, it's NIP90, I believe. It's called like data vending machines, DVMs. Just Google that and you'll find some stuff about it.
Bro, that's literally like the epitome of a permanent crypto bull case in which AI agents use the crypto market and transact. I'm like AI agents that degen trade fucking inscriptions.
Bro, here we go, man.
Adam, what's the guy's name who created Ascribe on Bitcoin?
Trent
has something with AI and data as well. For those who don't know, Trent McConaughey.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
McConaughey created Ascribe, which was the first NFT platform on Bitcoin back in 2013. He then created something called Ocean Protocol in 2015, which is just high-level aggregated data that's sold in bulk, and it has some sort of AI component to it. I don't know the high-level overview. It's a little bit beyond my pay grade when it comes to intellectual capacity, but he started on Bitcoin. He created the first NFT platform, and he's always been generally very ahead of the trend.
Check out Ocean Protocol here on Twitter, and you'll see they have like this predictive market thing going on. Again, it's beyond my brain capacity as well, but this is like Trent's super cutting edge. Like if you think AI and predictive markets and stuff like that, if you're interested in that sort of stuff, holy cow. Like I got to think he's one of the leaders there, where it's basically like a gambling market where you guess the market price, and if you guess right, you win. And I don't know, man. I don't understand it, but I know it's at the cutting edge.
Wholesale data, dude. Wholesale data. Satoshi, what's on your mind?
Hey, welcome, friends. Thanks for having me up here. I wanted to sort of chip in about attributes, in fact, and I know unfortunately I was all hand up and ready to come in earlier on when you were actually talking about attributes and how they're working at Ord.io and so on, and then we've actually since moved on to AI. So I don't know whether you want me to
go for it, man.
And come back, but also you'll have to forgive me and definitely give me some thumbs down and boot me off if it gets too shilly, because I want to just talk about something super interesting that we're doing, but I'm going to try and talk about
Are you going to pump some random Vitalik bought this Bitcoin here and then sold it, so this is the Vitalik attribute or something like that? Are you gonna shill some random attribute right now?
Yeah, we're calling it hard token. No, I'm kidding. No.
Okay.
No, it's not that at all. It's not that at all.
Okay, what is it?
But so what it is that so something that and I'm going to say we in the broadest sense, because essentially I'm here in the UK and the dev team's over in Vietnam, and what we really want is Duck from the dev team talking, because he is the wizard, but he's imparted knowledge to me, which do forgive me if I sort of slip up on it a little bit. But essentially what we're doing is we're looking at multi-attribute ordinals. So what we want to do, for example, is we've got let's say we inscribe, which we've just done actually, and I want to share this with you guys. But so what we do is we inscribe an uncommon sat, right? So that's fine. And then what we're then interested in after that is then we're looking at those 330 bytes of dust essentially that come along with that inscription. And then what we're doing is we're packing that full of all the other various sat types that exist. So if you think about what I'm trying to say is that we've got an uncommon, and then within the uncommon dust, then we're packing that full with a 78, with a block 9, with a pizza,
Gotcha.
and all these other different types of sats. So we're stacking attributes, if you like, and it's not something that we can really sort of, for example, on Ord.io at the moment. I think we're sort of limited to whatever the sat is that's attached, like number 1, if you like, in the block.
I get that. One question though is, how does the average person, right, if I'm buying an ordinal, right, that comes along with these interesting sats that are attached as dust, how do we ensure that person doesn't lose those ones as well, right? So that's kind of my first question on that sort of system.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, and again, feel free, Jake, to come back to me and crush my lack of big brain knowledge on this, because I'm not the dev. But essentially, what we're talking about is we're just talking about those first 330.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
my understanding is that those first 330 are essentially locked as part
Gotcha.
of.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So whenever
it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea.
So what we're doing is we're packing as much into that 330 as we can. Obviously, if you're using anything other than Ord to do this via, say, Xverse, this is all going to go horribly wrong at the moment. But what we're expecting is, especially when when we get the next sort of version of Casey's updates, that what we're doing will actually be a lot easier, because essentially we want to make use of the things that are coming in that update. But for now, we've got our own bespoke system of doing it. But what we want to do is make this all open source as well, so we can show everybody how we're packing all the different sats into this dust in hopefully what is a safe way.
All right. Well, let's hear Leo, what Leo thinks about this idea. What do you think, Leo?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, right? Like, you've got inscriptions are, NFTs on Bitcoin, but they're very native to Bitcoin in that they're tied to Satoshis, like the underlying currency. And the way these Satoshis are stored is they live in these UTXOs. And basically what Satoshi's talking about here is, every inscription, not only has the sat that it's inscribed on, that is how you tie ownership to that inscription. Through social consensus, we all believe that if you hold this sat, then you are the owner of this inscription, this file. The sat's moving around the network, the file actually just sits there. The file isn't like moving from your computer to another computer or something like that. And then there's also other sats in there that aren't tied to the ownership. And it's basically free, it's totally possible to, put whatever sats in there that you want to. And it sounds like Satoshi, innovators maybe thinking about adding some pretty cool, like, rare and exotic sats into there. The reason we currently don't index on Ord.io is because those sats could still be stripped out. So, like, if you were to go look at an inscription and you see it has an uncommon sat, right now that inscription is always going to be tied to an uncommon sat, right? That can't be changed. It's immutable. But if you have these other sats in there, theoretically, like, most people probably wouldn't do this, but you could go to the Explorer one day and see they have a bunch of, like, pizza sats or block 9 sats in it. And then you go, a couple weeks later and they're no longer there. And that's fine. We just need to find a different way to communicate that, rather than, marking the sat attributes the way we currently do on the inscription, because that's meant to be tied permanently to that inscription. So I could definitely think of interesting ways to kind of display this information, surface this information to collectors, and basically give insights into what other stats are in a UTXO. But yeah, we currently don't have support for that. And I don't think it fits into our stat attributes paradigm of, like, marking an inscription with an uncommon sat, for example, or a block 9 sat icon. It would probably be like a slightly separate thing where, you could scroll down and see, hey, like, it's part of a UTXO that also holds all these cool sats. That's probably how it would make sense to, weave in what he's talking about into the interface.
It kind of reminds me when I was joking around with Trevor when he was doing the pizza sats thing. I said you should take 10,000 pizza sats, put it into one UTXO, and call it a deep dish ordinal. Right? Yeah, I think that could be a fun meta if you're stacking these UTXOs with different types of attributes.
So funnily enough, that's exactly what we did, but with the 330, but only 330 pizza sats, right? Because they're the only ones that are going to stay. But that's the question, really, that we feel that those 330 are pretty safe. But I totally take Leo's point that, in fact, it depends how you use it and how you're moving your ordinals around. That is going to be the sort of the critical thing. But then again, when you're looking at, as we get sort of, if you like, better and the community is better skilled up, or it just becomes locked as standard. Because my understanding is that those 330 are locked as per Ord, as per how Casey described ordinal theory. So they can't really be moved unless you start sending transactions outside of Ord, essentially. So that's what we think is happening.
Yeah, maybe we just have to teach everyone how to use coin control.
Oh, God.
It'll just be another learning metric, right? We've gone through that at Emblem of helping people try to figure out coin control when you're importing.
God help you.
Yeah, when you're importing the private keys into Sparrow, it's a fun time. Go ahead, Leo.
I know this is called building Ord.io with Zach and Leonidas, but can I ask some questions about Emblem Vault?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think pretty much for people who've been in the historical community for a while, Emblem Vault is it's basically the way people, buy and sell these different assets from different chains, like, Counterparty, Namecoin, Doge Party, all of these very like old tokens. If you want to trade those on Ethereum, you use Emblem Vault to bridge those over, right? And during the last bull run, I don't even think Shannon was fully aware of what he was getting himself into.
For sure, definitely not aware.
but quickly realized he had product market fit, right? And we absolutely loved the product. It was incredible. I think it, I remember talking to White Rabbit being like, I actually, like, initially he was kind of trying to get me into, Rare Pepe, Spells of Genesis, the counterparty stuff. And I was like, I actually totally agree with you. The problem is I don't have any faith that the interface to trade these things is going to, be able to bridge and get good enough for, Ethereum people, like the traditional NFT collecting community, to get interested in that during this bull run. So I'm just going to wait. And basically what I saw was, and this changed my mind and why I, started collecting these counterparty assets, was Emblem Vault, right? As soon as people started bridging these things over and I saw you can buy and sell them on OpenSea, it just completely changed the way I looked at these things. And yeah, basically since then, you guys basically ran into a bunch of issues with, like, the system wasn't architected for specifically this use case. So you guys, went heads down and coded this version 2, which is just a way better user experience for collecting something like Rare Pepes, for example. It's just a way easier to collect Rare Pepes on OpenSea now than it was in the old Emblem Vault. Shout out to everyone whoever went through that experience. But yeah, pretty much, you, Adam and Jake, start working for Emblem Vault last year. And, you guys since then have actually rolled out that product. And it's just a huge leg up for the interface of collecting Rare Pepes, Spells of Genesis cards. And yeah, I mean, how is that all going? It seems like you've launched it. I see there's volume. It's exactly what we had all kind of imagined and hoped it would be. And, I think we'll be way better prepared for a future bull run. I don't think people will get scammed as much. This kind of thing will hopefully just not happen at all, which is huge. Yeah, I just was curious, like, the update for you guys, like, how are you all feeling? It seems like you've kind of accomplished what you mostly wanted to accomplish.
Ooh, man, this conversation can go many ways right now. So I first appreciate you for bringing it up. Yeah, we haven't done like a community kind of update in a while. So we're now yeah, Leo, you properly identify. We ran into a handful of errors when Shannon had begun building Emblem Vault in 2016, right? This was literally 8 months into Ethereum's creation. Smart contracts were still such a faint idea. It's gone through so many different, variations of it. It was originally built with this idea for DeFi. It was originally built with this idea of, hey, take some Bitcoin, some Litecoin, some Ethereum, throw it into a vault, and then go kind of trade it around, or go eventually put it into these kind of like staking ideas that were surfacing on the Bitcoin Talk forum. Ultimately, right, it became this use case of, instead of putting fungible tokens in, people were putting one single NFT from Namecoin or Bitcoin or Dogecoin in and selling it. And so we faced a lot of these issues. And so we had to conduct something called a migration, where we're taking 45,000 assets or NFTs, which are vaults, and moving them to about 35 different smart contracts, or what we call curated collections. Ultimately, what we thought was going to be 2 to 3 weeks is now 4 months into this process. So we've learned a lot. We learned that the technical debt behind the system has to be completely rebuilt, like literally from the ground up. So this is kind of what we've been doing. But you could kind of see where this is going with Rare Pepes. Now you see 20,000 Rare Pepes on a single collection page. We have I think it's like almost 1,600 of the 1,774 are available on OpenSea, which is just like a crazy exposure. So we're now in this process. First, I guess this will be the first time I'm kind of announcing this, but we're in the process of bringing on 2 new team members to Emblem, so that we can kind of really accelerate this process. Chris being on stage being one of them, and the other one to be announced here in the next few weeks, which I think will have a pretty large impact in I guess user confidence in the product. We've been really over the last 2-3 months after we realized the hurdle that we're doing this, right? Like when you think about migrations, it's literally one contract of assets going to the next contract. We're taking one contract of about 50 different collections from 12 different blockchains and then moving them to 35 different smart contracts. It's been a quite a learning experience to say the least, but we're now probably about 60 to 70% on the way through. And the goal is to essentially create this ecosystem to where users could take any NFT from any blockchain and go trade it on any blockchain or go utilize it in any way, shape, or form. So, for example, right, this is really getting heavy into this like idea of crypto interoperability. So you have things like bridges, wraps, and vaults. I think are the only three mechanisms I'm aware of that allow you to bring assets to other chains. Bridges obviously are the most popular, but they were built for fungible tokens. They've obviously $1 billion in hacks as well. Then you have wrapped, right? Like wrapped Bitcoin, which is this central custodial offer where you send Bitcoin to BitGo, and then they basically create a representative token on the other side, and you have to KYC to go each. Then you have this thing called vaults, which essentially you're just taking the private keys to a wallet and trading it in an NFT in an encrypted way. So, right, the main use case is, hey, let's take these assets that have value but limited infrastructure, i.e., right, rare pepes and counterparty, and even the early stages of Bitcoin ordinals, and let's go bring it to a market that has wallet support and Emblem Vault, and also marketplace support, whereas Emblem Vault listing on OpenSea, so you get this type of liquidity. But as we've learned since Adam and I've joined, there's a lot of other use cases that people are very interested in. One use case, right? We have a pretty close relationship with Punk6529, who has, I don't know, maybe $5 to $10 million in rare pepes, and they have no intention to sell any of these, but they do have large intention to take their rare pepes into their open metaverse that they're building on Ethereum and hang them in the gallery and do other types of things that are non-trading speculative value because they're collectors. And we've had other ordinal community take their ordinals and go put it into like a fractional kind of thing and go experiment with that. And you have ones who, for example, like Yuga Labs, right? They have 12-fold. You could go put 12-fold into a vault and then go take it into other side, right? So all these conversations have kind of been held, but the product of Emblem is still a little bit not completely there. Once we get through this migration process, then we can. But then you have this other idea, and we were talking about this. I don't know what show we were talking about this on, Adam, about Emblem Vault deploying on ordinals, which is something we can do, and it's something we have full intention to do some point next year. And this, I think, can open up, we believe, like a large opportunity. It could also just be a giant nothing burger as well. But now think of this idea that you could take any type of NFT from any blockchain to Bitcoin. Like, what does that entail? When you think about the strengths of Bitcoin, right, you would think of just like on-chain swaps, right? What if I want to take my Bitcoin, or I want to take my CryptoPunk and go denominate it in Bitcoin? So I'm going to go sell it on Magic Eden Ordinals Marketplace using Emblem Vault, right? This is something that you should be able to do. Gaming assets of all sorts, and eventually then fungible tokens as well will also make its way once we get there and we're hitting kind of massive scale. But the whole idea, I'll use rare pepes as an example. Let's say we take the rare pepe collection and we deploy it on Ethereum, Polygon, BNB. Those are the three blockchains that we exist on. And then you go deploy it on things like Solana, all the layer 2s, Escription, and Bitcoin. You'll then have this ability to just move your rare pepe to whatever blockchain that you want, depending on whatever your requirement is. Some people want to go take their rare pepe to Solana because it's much cheaper to mint there. I kind of see this as probably what the ultimate thing is going to happen is most people will probably mint their ordinals or their rare pepes or Bitcoin stamps or Namecoin assets, whatever it is, to Solana because it's pretty much a nominal gas fee. And then you'll do your trading there. And then maybe you see that the new momentum on ordinals where there's just like a massive liquidity rush happening. So you say, hey, I want to take my CryptoPunk or my Bitcoin my CryptoPunk that's on Solana. And now I just want to go move it to Bitcoin ordinals and try to capture some of that liquidity that's there and some of that attention. And these are kind of the ideas. We were kind of exploring this in the beginning of the conversation, is preparing for things that, you can maybe speculate will happen, but you have no real certainty that it's an absolute. Some of the things really can catch you off guard. The two really, meteoric rises of Emblem was first Rare Pepe and Spells of Genesis and this like historical NFT narrative at the beginning of 2021. And to kind of like display the type of volume that happened, there was 30,000 ETH in volume that had happened over 2 months, right? So you're saying pretty much $100 million in Bitcoin NFTs were traded on OpenSea at the end of 2021. And up until ordinals, Emblem Vault had actually traded, I think it was like 70 to 80% of all time Bitcoin NFT volume. And then ordinals happened, right? And so when ordinals happened, the first real volume to happen was Bitcoin punks getting vaulted and then being sold on OpenSea. And
you guys are so goated for that, bro. We made a bag doing the OpenSea transactions. So thank you. I just want to say thank you for that.
I appreciate that. And so now we're kind of in this position where, the first use case of Emblem Vault is generally emerging protocols who are looking for wallet support and marketplace support. So the most recent of this happened with Escriptions. Tom came in and posted about Escriptions. The assets existed, but there was nowhere to store them or to sell them. And so he said, hey, let's create a curated collection. And then they ended up doing large amounts of volume and interest, right? But now the marketplace or the ecosystem is kind of evolved in a way to where Emblem Vault isn't necessarily needed, but it can be utilized, right? Because you still want to take your Escription to some of these DeFi protocols or NFT-Fi. If you want to go borrow and lend against your Escription, right, you're going to want to have to put it into a vault to go access those ecosystems. And so we're attempting to build Emblem Vault in a way to where users can really do whatever they want with it. We want to just be more of kind of this infrastructure background more than this kind of collection curator. Although this is kind of a byproduct, there's really no escaping that for now until we can really automate the process entirely to where users can really just deploy their own curated collections and set their own parameters. That's kind of the way that we want to build it. But I'll kind of leave it at this one example now is for multi-chain market or multi-chain communities. The cool thing about the Bitcoin ordinals community is that it's largely a supporter of multi-chain thesis. I think it's because everyone kind of came from either Solana, Ethereum, I think Bitcoin as a V and Stacks. And so, there's a handful of these communities who we've spoken with who said, hey, I want a curated collection on OpenSea so that I can reach, the Ethereum crowd. Right. We had Coldy, who's like a popular Ethereum artist. He did a Bitcoin ordinals collection with us, 300 pieces, and then vaulted them and sold them on OpenSea. And it sold out quite quickly because that's where his users are. And then a bunch of those users then came to us and said, hey, how do I unvault this? And so how do I go explore the ordinals ecosystem? Right. So you can onboard people to ordinals using Emblem Vault by meeting them where they're most familiar with, and then allowing them to then unlock the native asset and then go explore ordinals. So from the education standpoint, it's something that we take, very high preference on. And it's a really, really exciting time. Emblem Vault, just some stats. We sit around, we'll have a better number, we'll have a more formidable number once we're done with migration, but about 75 to 100 million in TVV, which is what we call total value vaulted, which is just TVL. Which is the highest of all NFT interoperability protocols by a large margin. By literally, we probably have like 90% market dominance in that area. But right, you could see it as NFTs grow, then that number should definitely balloon this kind of bull run. But just building all type of utility is the ultimate goal. It's just of recently we've hit a little bit of a technical hurdle that is very large to overcome for a small team. And so we're actively bringing on two team members to help mitigate that and really kind of really blow this thing open. But again, one of our ultimate goals next year is to really deploy on ordinals. It's almost a homecoming for Emblem Vault because it began on Bitcoin and then left Bitcoin in 2019 when the culture war is really high and nobody in it, and they were, the Bitcoiners are really resistant towards people building on Counterparty. So Shannon and the team left and built on Ethereum, and I've always been looking at a way to come back to Bitcoin, because we do believe in the same way that, that's kind of one of the final end products, at least for the strengths of Bitcoin. And it's somewhere we want to be. And I believe we have a solution. We just have to get through migration and a handful more tools. And Adam's sitting here smiling before we can actually get there. But being interoperable between, Solana, ETH, ETH-L2s, and Bitcoin, we believe is the basket of probably 95% of the liquidity that's going to exist. And Adam, is there anything else you'd like to say after that long ramble?
Well, no, you hit it, and it's going to be fun to see. I've never been a fan of the Teleburn idea. I'm more of a believer in this idea of like keeping the provenance of the initial NFT in this case. So I look forward to the day when people will be able to bring their CryptoPunks over to Ordinals to trade and access and have them on Ordinals. And then unvault them and bring them, hold the native asset. Like, I'm excited for that day. And I think most people on Ordinals should be excited for that day when any asset can come back and take part in the Ordinals ecosystem. It's going to be pretty awesome. Go ahead, Leo.
Oh, sorry, Lee. I got one more comment before. I see Bugsy's in the crowd. He commented, and I had a conversation with him months ago where he said if I could bring a Mooncat to Bitcoin and he could buy it in Bitcoin, he will buy it. So I'm going to bring it, sir, one of these days. And we'll make you
gonna hold you to that, man.
We'll buy your first ETH NFT with Bitcoin. Go ahead, Leo.
Okay, so this is a dumb idea, but while you guys were talking, by the way, congrats. I know that there's always going to be technically challenging things. This is the life of a startup. But just, you clearly have launched, from my perspective, you fulfilled your kind of vision there. I know there's probably a few lagging collections that you need to migrate still, but people can trade rare Pepes, right? Like on OpenSea in a pretty intuitive manner. And that's a huge win, and you have to celebrate those wins. Obviously the vision requires you guys are going to have a lot of work for a long time, and that's the nature of shooting for high lofty goals. But I think I have no doubt you guys are gonna build some really awesome stuff, and I think expanding the team is super bullish. You really think that's an awesome decision. My silly idea was, this is actually probably a bad idea, but take rare Pepes, take counterparty assets, and vault them to Ordinals.
Oh no, that shit's happening, bro. That's happening.
Yeah.
It's funny. We actually had this conversation with Joe Looney at the beginning of Ordinals. This had to be in maybe March. Joe had proposed this idea of an ordinal envelope of some sort where you can basically put a counterparty token inside of an ordinal. And then in order to remove it, you have to burn the ordinal equivalent, and then you get the counterparty token. And since counterparty already has a vault that exists on it, Shannon had tried this in 2021. So we were thinking about doing that in a way, but it just became so clunky back in March. We're like, we could barely get people to use Emblem now. There's going to be no way we're going to make them. We're going to figure it out and with an additional 10 steps. But that actually bringing counterparty and Bitcoin stamps and being able to dominate it in Bitcoin on a Ordinals marketplace, I think is a massive idea. We believe is a pretty massive idea. So I don't think that's dumb at all, Leo. It's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of silly bridging from the same chain to the same chain, but at the same time, I think we all kind of share this thesis on, all of these OG assets, right? These are just incredible digital artifacts, digital objects that are part of the history of NFTs, and they're on Bitcoin. They're not on other chains. And there's this entire new wave of people, and I've actually found it pretty hard. For whatever reasons, there's two clear communities. There's the counterparty community and the Ordinals community. And there was a little overlap at the beginning, but I pretty quickly just figured out I was trying to tweet to the kind of my new Ordinals followers crowd about counterparty. They just didn't give two shit. They did not care. They didn't want to hear it. They just didn't care. That's just the reality. And I think a lot of it has to do with they would have to go download a different wallet or figure out this whole new thing. And it just needs to be part of an Ordinals marketplace, right? If if you go to a marketplace that they're already used to connecting X first, and people are already used to, the interface, and there's just, a bunch of like really dank Pepes, of course people are going to degen into that. Of course people are going to want to collect these OG Bitcoin assets. But that hasn't really happened. And, we have now two different kind of communities. And I think I noticed there's a little bit of like, I don't want to say animosity, but just like there's a little bit of tension there, which to me is like kind of regrettable. At the end of the day, I don't think Ordinals like is thinking about how do we do this in a way that we like leave counterparty in the dust. That's not the angle at all. It's very much, I think it should be how can we bring counterparty forward with Ordinals and unite, all of these Bitcoin NFTs, the old Bitcoin NFTs and the new Bitcoin NFTs in an interface where they're not any different. Because they're both on Bitcoin. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a worthy cause to work on, because I think it's the interface once again that's kind of the bottleneck there.
Yeah,
and sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was just saying, also you see this kind of on Ethereum too. Is everyone just wants something in one place to be able to buy and sell, right? So that's why the original idea of vaulting things and putting on OpenSea, it's like, oh, now I get all my collections in an EVM environment, so now I could go play with them. I could see the similar thing happening on Bitcoin, to where you have Emblem Vault deployed on Ordinals, and then you could just take all types of Bitcoin assets from all these different varying protocols, whether it's like Rune NFTs or Pipe NFTs, or right, the Atomical stuff, or even some of the older stuff like Steven Vogler and all these like very vintage kind of things. I think being able to have those all vaulted and sit on an Ordinals marketplace, I could see kind of being like one of the final products, and then you could kind of label it by the protocol. To me, would be like kind of the end thing there.
Totally, man.
Yeah, it's exciting time. But we are here at 2 hours, man. I know Leo likes to go for 7-8 hours all day, sleeping in bed, eating food while hosting spaces. But we're gonna close it up here, man. I appreciate Leo, Zach, dude, everyone who came on stage. This was an awesome conversation. It's always a great time talking with you, Leo, especially when you're not hosting. So it's a completely different kind of conversation when you're a host. So, really appreciate your time. For those that don't know, Adam, myself, and Chris, we work at Emblem Vault. It allows you to trade NFTs across blockchains. We host this show Tuesday through Thursday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Tomorrow, we are featuring the Pepe Show. We're featuring the artists of Fake Rare. We're going to be talking with Coldy and Brian Brinkman, and they will be there tomorrow. And Thursday, we'll have a special one for there. Adam, any final words before we close off here? Or maybe we'll give it to Leo for some final words.
No, Leo, appreciate you coming on, man. Yeah, Leo, why don't you tell people, well, everybody knows where Ord.io is, but final words, brother?
Guys, it's been an honor to come on the show. I seriously miss kind of hanging out with y'all. I kind of pivoted to Ordinals, right, from historical NFTs. I just was, very just going down this rabbit hole further and further, and got really into what was happening here with Ordinals. And this is where I'm focusing my time now. But there's obviously some overlap between Emblem Vault and Ordinals, but you guys are still mostly focused on the historical NFTs, which I absolutely love and think you guys should. But I miss that we don't get to have our NFT Now and Rug Radio and all these shows, right? Like a Twitter Space is like, yeah, sure, it's a podcast, but it's really just like hanging out, talking with people. Like it's really not that serious, right? Like I don't consider these things to be, I'm sitting here with my microphone and I'm answering very meticulously. Like, dude, I'm just talking with Jake and Adam, right? Like, and I kind of miss that. So yeah, I don't know. Like, let's not be strangers, and that's probably partially on my on me. So yeah. I miss you guys.
Yeah, you guys are crushing it. Yeah, we support historical NFTs. We're largely expanding it now, but again, once we're on Ordinals and we've officially deployed there, there's going to be a lot more overlap. So again, also Zach, any final words? We'll close it up with you, brother, and then we'll get out of here.
No, all good. Thank you guys again for inviting us. It's been awesome to kind of reconnect a bit. And yeah, excited for everything in crypto, Bitcoin. Let's see what happens.
Let's go. Long live Ordinals, and for all the BRC 20 deniers, man, probably you. We'll see you next week, or we'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, guys.